In this video, I'm going to be showing songwriters how to start a rough mix of the instrumental part of a song. I'll be covering leveling and panning to get a good balance, EQ to shape the tone, and other effects like compression, saturation, and reverb to give the track character and to glue it all together. With those basic ideas, you'll be able to get your mix roughly 80% of the way where you want it without it being overly complicated. So let's jump in. So one of the first things that I like to do when I'm working on instrumentals is to work on the balance just using simple things like volume and panning. So let's listen to what we have right now. I've taken out all the vocal pieces of it and it's just simply drums, electric guitar, and bass right now. So everything right now is straight up the middle, straight up the middle at this moment. So let's listen to that really quick. All right, so one of the first things that I want to look at here is I have two different electric parts. So this first one and the second one. So they're both dialed straight up the middle right now. And so the first thing I'm going to do is just pan one left and one right. They're playing the same thing, but I'm going to give it more of a stereo feel by using that simple panning thing. So let's figure out which one of these tracks these are. All right, so let's take this one left, let's take this one right. All right, and since I spread them out, I'm also going to just take them down just a little bit, because once you spread them out, they actually start sounding maybe a little bit louder. So let's listen to that really quickly. All right, and then I have this kind of shimmering guitar. I don't know that I want that dead in the middle, so I might just move that to a little bit to the right side and turn that down just a little bit. Same thing with the bass. I'm going to leave that straight up the middle, but I'm just going to work on leveling that out so it's not quite as loud. I'm going to take the snare down just a little bit more. So again, I'm just listening to everything and starting to balance out between the drums and the bass and the electrics just to get a little bit more of an even feel, just using the panning and just using the volume just to start getting that balance initially. So then the next thing that I try to work on is the EQ, and all we're doing here is carving away the sound or carving the tone out a little bit just to make it fit together more. I'm listening for things that I don't like in the different instruments and trying to take those things away, or if there's certain parts of the instruments that I do like that I want to highlight, then I'm going to add to that just a little bit just to make it stand out a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and slap on an EQ. So I'm going to use this basic mixing one, and I'm going to start out with this one. So the first thing that I'm kind of doing is sweeping around, finding parts that I maybe don't sound as nice to my ears, but I'm keeping it kind of wide so that it's not super narrow and super focused. I'm just trying to find the parts that I like and the parts that I don't like. So I'm going to take away parts that I don't like and add to parts that I do like. So you're kind of creating these peaks and valleys a little bit. right, so I'm gonna take that same preset, I'm gonna drag it over to that other side, and let's see what we have so far, just kind of accentuating both sides the same way. All right, so I like those okay. Let's go ahead and move on. All right, so we have the electrics dialed in. That sounds good to my ear. I'm gonna start working on the bass now. All right, so what I did is I searched around on the EQ and found a place in the bass that I like the bottom end of it, the sound of it. I think it sounds pretty full and pretty good. So let's listen to that really quickly. So I'm just peaking that up just a little bit, and then I'm taking out stuff around this 180. And then I also bumped up a little section around this like 600 or so, because it sounded like a lot of the picking attack kind of sound of the bass that I liked. So I wanted to make sure that I pushed that a little bit more to the front. All right, so let's move on to kick next. And I'm not going to do anything EQ wise on the hi-hat, because I think it sounds okay and it's low enough in the mix that it's not doing a whole lot in there right now. So the next thing that I'm going to do is go into the drum bus and put some compression on that just to tame the peaks a little bit, and maybe adjust the volume just a touch as well. So I'm going to come over here to this drum bus, and I am going to grab, let me just grab the limiter. I'm going to put it on the compression setting, and then I'll just dial this in a little bit. All right, and then the next thing that I actually want to do is put some saturation onto the drum kit just to give it a little bit of a dirtier feel. So I'm going to use the plugin, where is it? Destructor. And I'm just going to use this distortion plugin that's up front. And I'm just going to mess with the preamp a little bit just to get the sound to show you what the drive is on it that I'm trying to go for, just to dirty up the drums just a little bit. Also add a little bit of compression to the bass. I'm going to put a little bit of overdrive on it first and then compress it a little bit. So let's get some of this going. So the last thing that I'm going to do for these instruments is to put a reverb into a bus, and then I'm going to use that to try to glue the instruments together to make them sound that they're all kind of in the same room. So I'm going to come over here to this far right side of the mixer. I'm going to grab this insert 125, right click on it, say dock to the right, and then I'm going to drop in Fruity Convolver, And then I'm going to come over here to the presets and I'm going to grab, let's try this lexicon style reverb. Let's send just the snare over there and let's cut that way down and see where we're going from there. So I clicked on the snare channel first and then I routed it out to this bus by clicking on the arrow over here, and then I'm just dialing in how much of that effect that I'm gonna be using in the mix. I'm gonna start it really low and then I'm gonna work my way up and then figure out where a good balance is. And all I'm really trying to see is if this is a good room sound that I can use for this mix. Well, hopefully you found these tips helpful. If you want to go a little bit more in depth on the mixer, check out this video over here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you in the next round.